Hi everybody, welcome back to Fun Facts with Faith. New filming location just for this morning because I don't usually film this early, and it turns out my entire house is like absolutely full of sunlight, which is great from vitamin D production and not so great for lens glare. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about an interesting connection that I found between New York City and one of my favorite playgrounds and St. Louis. So, in the 1930s, the Parks Department built a lot of playgrounds in New York. In 1937, they built a playground in Riverside Park, which was sort of in the 90s. The street numbers, the 90s, in the 30s, the decade. And likewise, there's another playground in a sort of similar area of Central Park that was built in 1936. That park in Riverside Park, in 1993, a nonprofit group commissioned an artist to build a bunch of statues for it, and they renovated the park, and it became Hippo Playground. Very famous, very well known amongst the children of the Upper West Side. And Hippo Playground is called that because of all of the hippo statues that were installed. And these things are great. You can climb on them, you can climb in them. One of them is hollow. They serve as water features, so they like make little fountains and you can run around in the water. So I always really enjoyed that. And the Hippo Playground in Riverside also has this great water feature, which is like a very porous rock that has all these little tiny like bronze or brass, I don't know, animal statues in them. And it's almost like a treasure hunt. You're like climbing over the rock, and then it's like, oh look, there's a little mouse, and there's a little frog, and there's a turtle. And it also is a water feature. I really enjoyed that. And then the Safari Playground, which is the one in Central Park, which also has hippos, due to a sort of 90s era renovation, was the playground that was closest to my house growing up. So we went there a lot. So imagine my surprise when I came to St. Louis and I went to the St. Louis Zoo for the first time. And I walked up to the entrance of the St. Louis Zoo and I stopped dead because what was there? There was a giant rock, porous rock, with a bunch of little animal statues in it. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what is at the Hippo Playground. Is this a giant coincidence? Like, this has to be the same designer. So I looked into it a little bit. And sure enough, the designer that installed that was the same designer that had made the hippos and the features for the Hippo Playground. And that designer was Bob Castley. So St. Louisians will know Bob Castley as the guy who designed and created the City Museum. For people who are not from St. Louis and don't understand and think the City Museum sounds kind of boring, I also thought that. I was like, it's a museum about the city's history, like that could be interesting, but like, I don't really understand why WashU is having one of our like intro events there. And then I showed up and I was like, oh, this is not a museum, it's a playground. It is a giant indoor playground with all these like underground areas and really sort of creative scenes. And there's a part where there's like a school bus on the roof, and there's a plane, and there's a ball pit somewhere. Very cool, very fun, enjoyable by children and adults alike. So when the time came to replace the hippos in the Safari Playground, because they were like not in great shape, the park scanned the originals to produce replicas, but they were like, well, what are we going to do with the originals? We don't want to just throw them out. So they called up the City Museum and said, do you want them back? And the City Museum was like, yes, we want them back. So they shipped off the hippos to the City Museum, and they've now been installed. And I have not yet had a chance to go visit them, but I'd really like to, and I hope I get a chance to do it before I leave St. Louis, because it was a pretty significant part of my childhood. I really like those hippos. So that's today's fun fact. Bob Castley, designer of the City Museum, is the man who is responsible for the Hippo Playground. I will see you tomorrow with more fun facts. Bye.